There's a quiet moment many of us reach when we realize we've been trying to fix ourselves, when what we really longed for was permission to soften, to stop striving, to stop outsourcing our wisdom, to come home to the body. In this conversation, I'm joined by Daoist guide and self-healing practitioner, Sifu Boggie. And this episode feels less like an interview and more like an exhale. We talk about what it means to heal from within, why ancient practices like Qigong and Tai Chi are deeply relevant in today's fast, overstimulated world, and how true healing isn't about being mastered, it's about being gently guided back to yourself. This is a conversation about trust, about nervous system safety, and remembering that your body already knows the way. If you've been feeling disconnected, overwhelmed, or quietly exhausted from trying to hold it all together, let this be a place where you don't have to try. Now let's dive in. Have you ever noticed your skin reflects your stress? I used to struggle with mine, dry, dull, reactive, until I started pairing nervous system regulation with products that actually honor your body. That's why I love Milk and Butterflies. They handcraft every formula with 100% organic ingredients and powerful aromatherapy oils. They aren't just products for your skin, they're rituals that restore hydration, resilience, and calm even in the busiest seasons of our life. You can try them for yourself and feel the difference. Head to Milk and Butterflies and use my promo code Dr. Kelly for free shipping. That's DRKELLY for free shipping. Also, check out the link in the description for the podcast. All right, welcome back to Rewiring Health. So honored to have Sifu Boggie on the podcast today. So thank you so much for being here today.
You're welcome. It's great to be here.
Yeah, so there's been so much I want to get into. The first thing I want to talk about, because I haven't had anyone talk about this before or really embody this, but Daoism. Do you mind just sharing what is that and just give a little bit of background on the practice?
Well, I mean, this could be a little bit of a sidestep, but George Lucas, the Star Wars, was actually based on Taoist philosophy. So the whole understanding of Star Wars, like the Force and the light and the dark side of the Force, is actually the representation of Qi, which is the Force energy, and the light and the dark side is the Yin and the Yang, which is expanding and contracting, or masculine or feminine, or not night or day. It's a big long list of what yin and yang is. And if I can quickly find one, I can normally the Tai Chi symbol, which has two little fish with the two little dots in. A lot of people call that the yin yang, but it's actually the Tai Chi symbol because it's yin and yang blending together. And so night and day, there's two parts to the night and day. To a good union, you have masculine and feminine. Inside you, there is the masculine side of you, the action side, and the feminine side of you is the nurturing, loving side. And then you also have the sacred child, the playful side, and the intuitive side. So we are many different, we're not just one thing, we're many different things. So the Tao is the way, the path, the balance, and it's about incorporating all of those. And the difference is in the West, we tend to hear the word balance, we think of scales, and we think, oh, making them still and steady and everything exactly the same. The Eastern concept of balance is more like a wave. The bigger the up, the bigger the down, the bigger the down, the bigger the up. And it's so balance is more of a continuous thing. It's but balancing things out according to everything you're doing. So it's a flowing way. The Tao is about the lives that we lead, trying to find balance, trying to bring things in to an equilibrium, and it's always continuing. It doesn't stop. It's always going. So I
Yeah.
think that's sort of like the short version of it. Of Tao.
Yeah, I appreciate your description because it's like you can hear these terms but not always know what it's representing. So I really appreciate that, and also that description of like you're so right. Everyone, we think of trying to acquire balance, but it's this like
constant moving thing of like, how do we balance one thing and then the other thing's always to get sacrificed and we feel like we're always failing. But I love that description of how you shared about the East, of it's like that flowing, the ebbs and flows, and it's like you can very much see that in your life, that there's ups and downs, and there's masculine, feminine energy. You can see so much of that playing a role. And I'm curious because I know you've had a background in a lot of different things, from being a martial arts, and then also a chef as well, right? And so, can you tell me, like, what drew you to Taoism? Like, how did that path then bring you to what you do today and what you share today?
I want to take a brief moment to pause from the episode to share something that I've noticed so many women struggle with, and maybe this resonates with you, that you do not feel safe to honor your own needs. You might be the one who learned how to be easy, capable, and reliable, and yet you're tired of overriding yourself. You're tired of explaining your no, you're tired of feeling guilty for wanting space, and tired of shrinking your truth to keep the peace. The thing that most people don't realize is that you can't actually protect your peace without a sense of inner safety. And without that safety, boundaries feel harsh, guilt feels unavoidable, and self-respect feels like something you're constantly working at instead of resting into. If you have that quiet, steady craving for self-respect, the kind that lives in your body, Self-Respect Reset was created for you. It's a guided, body-based experience designed to help you rebuild inner safety, trust yourself again, and honor your needs without guilt, explanation, or self-abandonment. If this speaks to you, you can find the link to join in the show notes. Now back to the episode.
So everything. So in Daoism and very much my philosophy, everything's interconnected to everything else. And a good example of that is I started doing this all when I was around about 11 years old, just a couple of months before my 12th birthday. And it's interesting, people say, oh, that's very young. And it's like, it's interesting, but actually, like, if you look into sports, like in America, like I'm British, but I actually a former ice hockey player. I'm a former figure skating ice hockey. And like, you go into that realm, as soon as you can walk or crawl, they'll have you on the ice. And it's the same in the Eastern world. As soon as you can start to walk, they'll start teaching you martial arts. But martial arts actually means something different in the East. Martial is practice, something you regularly do to create perfection. And the art is the flowing nature. So it's artistic, it's flowing. So martial arts is less about fighting and more about personal development. And it's very much everything you do interconnects with everything else you do. So when I was 16, and I've been doing it for 4 years, and I said to my teachers, I wanted to be a baker. I wanted to be a baker, make bread. And my teacher said, excellent, bakers make great masseuse, because kneading the dough is the same as massaging somebody. You need as much power to knead the dough, you need to be able to release tension in the bodies. So there is this whole thing of everything you do, it interconnects to something else. So even like ice skating is a good psychological tool, because when you're on the ice, you're on these two thin strips of metal, and you have to learn to balance. And if you're scared of falling over, when you fall over, it hurts, because you're all tensed up. And when you hit the ground, everything is shook. It's shaken, and it hurts more. But if you relax more and then fall, it actually it lessens the blow. And I even learned that. I even took that to the extent of when I was in a car crash, because I could see it happening, I just totally relaxed and went floppy. And it actually, the friend next to me broke some ribs and damaged his lung and had some serious damage. And I had hardly anything. And I said, how did you do that? It's like, but it's just learning that the whole idea, when we tense, you're actually more likely to damage something and to rip something in that situation. And it's just this understanding that everything we do is more interconnected than we realize. And this led me into so many things. It led me into quantum physics and epigenetics. And epigenetics is the understanding that the way you think and feel affects your physical health. And that's closely connected to quantum physics. But it's this whole thing of is that actually, we are far more interconnected than we realize. There's far more connections. So the Tao is all about everything you do has its own way, its own path, its own Tao. And it's about learning how to find that path, that balance, and then learning that everything you do connects with everything else you do, and so on and so forth. So it's all like a string of dominoes. One leads to the next, leads to the next. Even to the point where in my life, like I learned from my Sifus, is that go back and look at your life, and even the most horrible things that have happened in your life, when you look, they actually led to something better, and they led to something profound and wonderful. And so your downs aren't actually as down as you think, and to the point in Daoism, we say there is no good or bad, there just is. And of course, some people react very strongly to that. But when you look at all those interconnections, you look at the things, whatever traumas you've been through, they've led to great victories. And the fact that you're still here today means you're far more powerful than you realize if you've gone through lots of ordeals and lots of things. And it just makes you stronger. So it's that reality is like a learning tool, or a school. It's a big school that you're here to learn and grow. And there is no good or bad. It's just things that you advance from. If that makes sense.
Yes, it's such a powerful perspective when you can see that everything is truly working for you. It's not working against you. It's just helping you create that foundation for the next step in your life. And that's such a powerful way to view your life. And I know that was a big transition for me when I started realizing like everything was just building up to the next step. But for so many people, I think, and especially Western society, and what, I'm speaking more from like the view of the United States, it's like very much everything is separate. People are separate. We have to control things. There's so much constriction in everything in life. And then to feel that flow almost feels so foreign, or to trust the process, or to trust that all these things that are down right now are really going to bring us up. How does someone go from that much more of like a survival mechanism of their thinking to then starting to open up to the concept of flow and trusting the process?
For me, it was about knowledge. It is like the more you know, the more you grow, and it was very much like learning learning the science, like quantum physics and epigenetics, learning that even the smallest things are actually interconnected, and everything is just a fractal of everything else. Is because we definitely live in a society that's almost like law that, oh, you are separate to me and we're totally disconnected, but when you start looking for the connections, you'll see more connections. When you start realizing that in psychology and what's called NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, we know that your mind can't tell the difference between what you believe and what is real. This is why phobias exist. Is that a phobia is an irrational belief? But how did that become? Well, something triggered a fear of that thing, and it grew and grew and grew to the point where that you believe it so much you can make it real for you. You can make it true, and there is this whole psychological understanding that perception is your reality. So what you perceive is real for you. So the biggest thing first is to be able to almost, in Daoism we call it the lean back. It's like when you're right close up here, you're seeing all, you're seeing everything immediately, and everything's right now, and it makes the heart rate. But the more you can pull back, the more you can sort of disconnect a little bit, the more you can distance yourself, you see things in a different perspective, and you can start seeing a bit more of the bigger picture. And so it's this thing of, trying to actually see other things in different ways and seeing it. I didn't know until I was 30 years old, but I'm actually dyslexic. Dyslexics are very good at seeing things outside the box. In fact, they say, Sifu, you see things so outside the box, you're in another universe. You're not in the same freaking universe. So, but it's this whole thing of the biggest perspective. And one of the great things in Daoism is the understanding of breath. So the way you breathe affects the way you think and you feel. So if you breathe fast and shallow and erratic, your thoughts, your feelings, your actions will be or will become fast, shallow, and erratic. But if you can slow your breath down and breathe quietly and smoothly and flowingly, your actions, your emotions, your thoughts will become the same. So there is, this thing, and we know it through like martial arts. If somebody's being very aggressive and you're in that moment focusing on that person's aggression, your heart rate's going and you're going to act with very limited information. But if you can start to breathe and sort of focus within and maybe step back a little bit and give yourself more time to think, you actually start to see the bigger picture. So it's changing, is like the idea of, or some people talk about, oh, we're in the matrix. The matrix means the mother. You're in the mother energy. And it's like, yeah, but you can stand, the mother's there to help you, but sometimes you don't see it unless you give yourself the opportunity, you stand back. So you've created a pattern, especially if you're seeing everything as a negative or it's too much, then you need to break that pattern to be able to change it. So going outside, just go to the park, going and giving yourself 30 seconds. One thing with my ex-partner, when our daughter had colic, which is a condition that the baby like cries all the time, and her poor little stomach was rock hard, and even the doctor said sometimes you just have to go outside, let her cry, go outside and take a breath yourself, because and there's this interesting thing where people feel, and I've had a lot of both male and female students sort of say, I've got to be there for everybody. I've got to be there for everybody. So, well, what happens if you burn out? What happens if you break down? So, but taking time for me is selfish. No, actually, it's the opposite way around. Giving everything to everybody else so you burn out, that's selfish. Because if you burn out, then how can you help everybody? And somebody else will then have to help you. So you are the most important person you should be looking after. So giving time for you, and this is where depending on your beliefs and whatnot, but fill your own cup first. Is that your cup should be full. You should give yourself time to energize and keep yourself balanced and in sync with the universe, and then you can help more people. If you're run out, if you burn out, you can't help others because you burn out. So it's this rewiring things in a different way and understanding the perspectives.
Yeah, so powerful. And it's like I couldn't agree more. It really is taking back your own energy and recognizing how important you are to be full to give to others is absolutely essential. And I think so many people get stuck in that, well, I'm invincible. I can do everything. You hold it together until you unfortunately can't hold it together anymore. And then it kind of comes smack in your face that you can't live like that anymore. So hopefully just hearing this, anyone who's listening, like you're taking more of a proactive approach to navigating your own inner environment and allowing yourself to feel that peace within inside yourself. And I would love to go off of that because I know a big thing that, you talk about is like not always going external or fixing things from the outside, but actually going within, healing from within and having that power from within to allow ourselves to feel more peace, to allow ourselves to feel more health in our life. Do you mind just sharing your perspective and how you approach that and your point of view on that?
So, I mean, like I say, knowledge is a powerful thing. So, one of the things I learned very young was in 1974, the theory at the time that the atom was 99.999% empty space. So like the atom was like a little tiny star, and there's all this empty space. And what physicists wanted to prove one way or the other, was it empty space or was there something else? Well, what they found blew them out of the water, because what they found that 99.999% wasn't empty space. It was actually, in essence, a fluid, an energy that connected every atom with every other atom. So everything is all one, like in Star Wars, the Force, everything is the Force, everything is energy. We're all interconnected. And the idea is that I am just a macrocosm of the universe. So everything that happens inside, how I'm thinking and feeling inside, will affect me on the outside. So if I'm seeing everything is a hardship, everything is a problem, what we learn through NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, and psychology, is that the universe will reflect that. You'll find those problems. You'll find, there's always something to do. Then you'll find something to do. You'll find those issues. So you've got to, again, change in that perspective. And one of the biggest things for me is Qigong, which is Qigong or Chikung. A couple of ways of spelling it. And it just means energy exercise or breath work. And it goes back to that philosophy: the way you breathe affects the way you think, the way you feel. So when we start doing these movements, the Qigong, it actually starts to affect the mind, the body, and the consciousness or spirit. And the difference sort of like between, say, Qigong and yoga is that I know a lot of yoga. Now, yoga is good. Do not get me wrong. Yoga is definitely good. Just stretching the tendons. And in the Eastern philosophy, we store emotional trauma within our tendons. We store physical trauma within our muscles. So, like you've worked hard, or your muscles aching. But when emotionally, we store it all in our tendons. So when we stretch, if you stretch in the morning, or some people do yoga, you're I feel better, because you're releasing the toxins from the tendons. But I've known a lot of yoga practitioners who say, I can do yoga and I can do a couple of hours yoga, but I'm still thinking of the shopping list. I'm still thinking of the kids. This is running. With Tai Chi, which is like the grandson of Qigong. So Qigong, a lot of people have heard of Tai Chi, and it's like to say, Tai Chi is sort of like the grandson, or it's like Luke Skywalker. And Qigong is like Yoda. It's the grandfather, it's the great master. And the thing with these two exercises, when you do them, there's so much going on. You haven't got time to think about your shopping list, or what what the kids need, or what the partner needs. But what it does is it puts you into meditation. And meditation means focus on one thing and forget everything else. And now, Qigong's my way, but if you like knitting or swimming or fishing or running, when you talk to people who are you talk to people who are really into running, and they say, I go on the road and I forget everything else. I'm just focusing on that run, and that's a meditation. You're meditating. Because I love winding up my friends who love fishing, and they say, oh, go fishing. Oh, have a good meditation. I don't meditate. I don't. No, yes, you do, because when you fish, they come back and say, oh, yeah, I feel so much better. Gone fishing, I forget everything. I just work on. That's meditation. Meditation simply means focus on one thing and forget everything else. Now, Qigong and Tai Chi, when it works on the meditation side, it also, because within Qigong and Tai Chi, there is stretching. So it does do that yoga side as well. It focuses on relaxing the muscles, stretching the tendons to release the toxins, and then also keep everything flowing, which is the Tao. So it allows the consciousness to expand, because you're not in your forebrain, the monkey mind, as the East call it, or the ego. And we know, so medically, we know that the forebrain, we have 60 to 90,000 thoughts every single day in the forebrain. the frontal lobe. And so the whole idea of meditating, you literally draw yourself back into the back part of the brain and into the pineal gland, which really is an eye. You hear this, oh, the third eye. Well, actually, it's the first eye. And because they've actually found medically, they found there's an optical nerve that goes to the pineal gland, and it actually sees infrared and ultraviolet. It sees alternative things, but it gives you your clarity and your vision. So by drawing yourself out of monkey mind, the forebrain, and bringing yourself into the back part of the brain, you also allow your left and right hemispheres of your brain to sync up, and you actually get to subconscious side of you, which actually brings in that clarity and starts to solve your problems. So Qigong is an excellent, or Tai Chi is an excellent way to help clear the mind, help massage the muscles. It's just like self-massage as well. So you massage the muscles and stretching the tendons and get the body flowing and moving, which is a really good thing. Because when you sit on the couch or you sit down all hunched up, you're actually creating dis-ease. You're blocking your body. You're creating illness. And this is what we sort of lost the art of. Like when we're parents, we tell our kids, go out and play, go out and get some fresh air and connect to the earth grounding, which is a real thing, because we are actually a bioelectric magnetic system. So going outside, so you tell your kids to do that, you got to do it yourself. Go out there and go out and play. We were told, like we're sort of told, oh, play for children. No, play for adults as well. But, don't make it a serious thing. Don't turn it into a sport. Allow yourself to paint, allow yourself to draw, allow yourself to play, to dance like there's nobody there, and allow yourself to express yourself. And that's the sacred child side. That's allowing yourself to be that sacred child energy. And again, that opens up your inspiration and your idea to interconnect. Because if you're blocked, that stiffness, that dis-ease, everything looks harder, everything feels harder, and if you physically can't move, you start to emotionally can't move or stagnate, and you consciously or spiritually stagnate. So flowing and moving in a balanced way, and allow yourself just to flow and move and be spontaneous, that allows you to actually rebalance, create the Dao, create the Tai Chi, and balance things back up and create harmony.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that you have what you share about the meditation and its movement in meditation, because I think so many people can have that misconception of like sitting, quiet, perfect scenarios, perfect situation, that for so many people feels so unachievable, especially when you're starting out. Like, how do I just sit here? And you've been sitting for 8, 10, 12 hours already. You're like itching to move. So I love how you share the examples of like how that movement is essential for that flow in the body and allowing your energy to flow through you. And I'm curious, how would someone know, like, having, if they do have some energy blocks and they're feeling that in their body, how do they know if there's energy blocked, and what's the feeling when the energy starts flowing again?
It's a lot easier than most people realize. How do I know are there energy blocks? Do you feel stiff and achy? Are you grumpy? Or are you biting when normally you wouldn't? Are you struggling to think of an idea? Block. And the biggest, one of the interesting things I found when studying epigenetics was over 10 years ago, but we still don't know about it. Over 10 years ago, there was case studies done on children, and especially going into traumas and whatnot, but the understanding of children that have been told not to fidget to children that have been never told that, and to become adults. Fidgeting is actually a way for your body to release trauma and tension. So, I'm half Irish, half Russian. I'm quite expressive with my hands, but I'm also moving about. I've done my own podcast, and I normally sit on the yoga ball, moving about. And everybody goes, I feel seasick. And it's like, But the idea of constantly allowing yourself to fidget actually releases built up tension within your body. And so that stiffness that you're feeling, the worst thing you were told is, however old you are, oh, that's old age. Because that is total and utter nonsense. Because and I learned this in my 20s. I went to China and Japan, especially in China, and I saw 90-year-olds who I was fit, and they were putting me to shame. They were doing the splits and back flips and all this, and it's like, hold up. And in China, or at least in the 90s, they even at 70, 80, they're still working in the fields 10, 12 hours. They do exercise, they keep maintaining their health. Because actually in China there's a law they've got to do half an hour exercise every single day. Could be qigong, could be dance, it could be running or the gym, but they've got to do half an hour every day. So it's sort of an interesting law they have in China. But it maintains their health, and so that stiffness you have, whether it's physical, emotional, as in getting grumpy, or you get irritated by tiny little things, and or you're struggling to think of something or to come up with ideas. They're all blockages. They're all blockages, and like I say, there's lots of ways to shift that, but the biggest thing is to do some sort of movement, physical, emotional, and energetic or spiritual.
Yeah, it's so funny you say that. Every time I always have like a gem. I'm always like fidgeting. My son. It's ironically, you say that because my son is 6, and in school he's always like moving and everything. Last year he would get in trouble all the time because he just couldn't sit still. And it's like you're teaching them to just like, I'm like, he's 6 well he's 5 then, but it's like you're teaching these kids at a very young age that sitting still is the way to be, and that you have to be so structured. And it's like you hear this, it's like that's the natural way to allow the flow to go through the body. Like, how sad is that we are suffocating that at such a young age?
Well, there is a sad but interesting thing. Like, so Japan and Sweden, both of these places, they actually the children are in a nursery style environment until, or they don't start proper educating until they're 9 years old. 9.
Wow.
Now, a lot of people will go, oh, but then they'll be behind. The interesting thing they found, when they compared one from when these children got to 16 and they compared them with children from other countries at 16, they not only caught up, most of them had gone past that understanding and learning. They'd learned so much more because they were allowed a period of time to play. Now, a lot of people have heard this. There's a saying that was said, Confucius saying, but it was actually Lao Tzu, a Daoist. But there's a saying: "Show me a child of 9, and I will show you an adult, man or woman." And people say, oh, it's like their main premise is, from 9 years old, that's pretty much, unless big trauma things happen, that's pretty much their character from 9 onwards. But it's also actually their adulthood or the road to adulthood doesn't start until 9. They should be a child all the way up to then. And then from there, they start learning the ways of the world. Because in the Eastern philosophy, they want you to maintain some of your childhood. The sacred child is, or the sacred child, divine child, is actually a thing. It's meant to be harbored. It's meant to be connected. This is why, if you look in over the Shaolin, that's the guys with the bald heads, the yellow orange robes, or the Daoists, you see them like these adults. They're laying over each other and cuddling, and they've been like big kids, but they're just relaxing and playing, and that inhibition's not being taken away. There's nothing seedy about it. It's just being relaxed and being like a child and enjoying life. And it's the biggest thing is that when we're taking it away that early, like, and in the UK, they start doing exams at 5 years old, 6 years old, and it's like, yeah, I can already see, and I've seen like how many young adults are coming up with issues and problems and stresses and worries, because you're sticking them into a box far too early. You shouldn't stick them into a box ever, but definitely sticking them in a box far too early, starting at that age. And it's just like interesting, like you've seen this like playing out, and it's just like we've got to we've got to change the way we do stuff. But the way you do that is you've got to change you. You want to affect the outside world, change yourself. That's the big thing. Like I said about the never make your cup empty, the overflowing cup, is that one thing I learned through epigenetics and quantum physics is that the inner reality affects the outer. And there was a thing in China called Cloud Whisperer, who were these Daoist monks that would like go to a village, like say there was a feud in that village for 20, 30 years. They'd sit on the edge of the village and meditate, and they would find that imbalance in the village inside them, and they would work on it, and they would clear it, and it would magically resolve the situation, because everything on the outside is only a reflection of what's in you. So when there's stuff happening on the outside, if there's lots of chaos on the outside, look in. Try to balance stuff inside, and that outside will change. Because I've done that quite a lot, like being a very rowdy, noisy place I've gone to, and I've just sat there and just relax myself, fidget a little bit, and bring myself quiet inside, and so magically everything starts to quiet down a little bit, and it gets a little bit less chaotic, and that's helped in many situations. And even if you don't affect the outside world, your inner peace is the most important thing.
Yeah, it's so powerful, and it makes you, it's almost like doing your own experiment and trying that. And I can attest to that, because there was one time I also have a 3-year-old son. He was like losing it, crying and everything. And I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm not going to control that. I'm just going to sit here and breathe. And I experienced that. He just like settled. I was like, wow, that was pretty cool. So it's amazing and so profound. And I want to go off of that because Ed Milet talks about that. Most things are caught, not taught. You can tell your kids all the right things, but they're going to lead by your example. They're going to lead by the energy that you're expressing, your nervous system. Can you share, for someone who's listening that maybe is in the thick of it, they're exhausted, they're working all the time, they have kids at home, what would be the first step for them today that they could start to allow their inner world to be more at peace, and they could start to really hone in on their energies?
So, two of my favourites, the important ones. So, belly breathing. So the belly breathing technique is like when you look at a baby, their whole belly expands and contracts, and so does their body, because obviously when they came from the womb, they were connected through the umbilical cord, and so their stomach was the most important thing. Now, our bellies actually control our lungs. We all, like, you hear people, oh, it's the diaphragm. The diaphragm actually it's just above the belly, and as you breathe and expand, you can actually fill up the lungs, and then you pull the belly in, and you can then push the air out. So using your belly actually works on the lungs. Now, when we work on the breath, like I said, the way you breathe affects the way you think, the way you feel. So if with everything going on the outside, and like you said yourself, like, and it only takes, if the biggest thing I always say is like, when people say I don't have time, I can find a minute in your world when you're not doing anything. I can find 5 minutes. I can probably find 15 minutes in your world. So whenever people say I don't have time to do this, yes you do. Yes you do. If you sit there watching mind-numbing TV, or you're waiting for the kettle, or you're sitting in traffic, you have time.
Your
So
phone tells you how much time you spend on the screen. There's the evidence right there of the time.
exactly. Or I do a little bit like that. So belly breathing. So you can, if you're not driving, place your hands on the belly, breathe in, feel the belly expand, then breathing out and pull that belly in. So breathing in, let that belly expand, breathing out, pull that belly in. And like I said about balance, balance is a wave. And so breathe in, get up to the breathe in so you can't breathe in anymore, and then you breathe out, pulling the belly in. And then when you've gone as far as you can breathing out, you breathe back in again. So you allow it to be like a wave. So you breathe in, let it expand, breathe out, let it contract. And eventually, if you can, like feel your whole body sort of like expanding as you breathe in. And then you breathe out, don't shrink into a little ball, just go to a reset, to a relaxed position. So breathe in, expand, breathe out, relax. And that is what's called Qigong, breath work, working with breath. Now, there's loads of movements and whatnot, but that's the basis. So breathing in, expand, breathing out, contract. And just focus. And you can be still driving and you're, aware of the thing, or even talking in the conversation, or somebody's having an argument with you. Start focusing on your breath. Just breathing in, let the belly expand, breathing out, let it contract, breathing in, expand, breathing out, contract. And if you like a little bit of fidget, do a little bit of fidget and a little, and feel where that tension is, because feeling means you recognize it, and that means you can do something about it. So you feel, how do your shoulders feel? How did you know? It's a bit stiff, twitch, wiggle, and let's start moving and letting that stuff go. Now, in the forebrain, we talked about like 60 to 90,000 thoughts, and when it's getting all overwhelming, do that breath as much as you can, but also, as long as you're not driving, look up, because when we look up, we actually start to drain the forebrain, because we're literally tilting the head up, and we're allowing all the fluids going down the back of the neck, down the spine, down through the body. So carry on that breathing, looking up. And what happens, just a few minutes of looking up, you're disconnecting from that 60 to 90,000 thoughts. So a lot of people I've had who suffering from anxiety, PTSD, lots of chronic pain, but also like very much in the head. It's just looking up and spending a few minutes looking up, breathing in, let the belly expand, breathing out, pulling the belly in, and you just bring yourself back to center, because you're the center. And you bring yourself and just allow yourself to breathe. And because, you want to do stuff in life, breathe. Because if you're not breathing, if you stop breathing, you're going to stop doing stuff in life very quickly. So allow yourself to breathe. And when you expand, you're getting up to the yang. And when you breathe out, you're resting down to the yin. And just allow yourself just to do that. And if you can, now obviously I'm talking the hind legs off a donkey. But if you weren't talking, put your tongue on the roof of the mouth, and it sort of makes a connection. There's a thing called the microcosmic orbit, or a dear old friend of mine, Barefoot Doctor, used to call it scoop the loop. And put the tongue on the roof of the mouth, and it just connects that energy. Breathing in, it draws it all the way up, and breathing out, and it goes all the way down. And it's creating this domino effect, because the whole point of Qigong is to build up your Qi, build up that energy, because flowing water never grows stale or blocks. So you allow that energy to that expanding and contracting. And if you've got pets, you watch your cat or a dog especially, and you'll see them like sometimes sitting there just staring off into space. They're meditating. And you see the whole body gently expand and gently contract. And animals do all this naturally. They have times where they sit there staring into space and meditate. You'll see them wake up in the morning and they'll stretch. They're doing their yoga, and then even if your dog's 16, you'll see them have their mad half an hour where they're getting all excited and being like a puppy again. That's their qigong. So it's a natural thing in life, to do energy exercise, to qigong, to meditate, focus on one thing, forget everything else. And then also to stretch and to release the toxins from the body.
It's amazing. Yeah. And I love how you share about pets, because they almost have this like natural instinct, like you shared, to do the movements, to stretch, to yawn. Like you see that in them. Yet for humans, we've become so disconnected from that. And I know you're talking about like the kids and the playing and everything like that. A lot of that shame can a lot of times like suffocate the things that we feel naturally drawn to. Can you talk about that? I'm curious, like your perspective on how we can release some of these things that we've had or that have held us stagnant or have disconnected from our true essence. How do we start to release those to come back to the connection so that when we do these practices, we can really tune into ourselves again?
The best technique I know is that in Daoism it's called like we sort of hint or said about the matrix, the mother. Be your mother, and be your mother. Now, not all of us had great mums, and I'll keep quiet on that one. But it's the be your own mum, be your own, And what I mean is this: so if a child had been through a traumatic situation, you would want, or a lot of people are mums, you give them love and support them. Well, be that for yourself, be your own like support, because sometimes you're not going to get it from the outside world, but you are your own Sifu. You are your mother, your own father, your own support. So, think of, and I sort of said it earlier, is that think of all these things that you've been through and think of them and then think, hold up, I'm here now. However, and I've had friends and students who, have literally been through really traumatic things, abuse and both like families and partners. And it's like, I fully understand this, but you're still here. Do you realize how freaking strong you are? That, you know, they try to destroy you, they try to break you, and you're still here. And acknowledge how powerful you really are because you've gone through the things that you've gone through, and you're still here. So, firstly, we need to acknowledge how wonderful we truly are, and then we need to actually forgive ourselves. To forgive ourselves that you've held on to it because there's a part of you that thinks I must keep this to make sure it never happens again. And so we keep living that trauma over and over again, and we keep into those nightmare situations. We keep reliving them, and it's like, but I can forgive myself now. I'm no longer in a flight or fight situation. I can let that go. I can allow that to go because what you focus on grows. So if you keep focusing on those situations, you'll draw them back into your reality. We know this through psychology. We know this through NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. We also know this through the consciousness, the quantum physics. That what you focus on grows. That we literally know the reason in medical case studies why they have blind, double blind, even treble or quadruple blind experiments is because the observer affects the experiment. So you have to acknowledge what you've been through and how powerful you are, and then forgive yourself for holding on to it and allow yourself to let it go and nurture and love yourself, saying, you've been amazing, you've done this, and not only have you gone through this time, you've been holding on to it all this time. You've been holding on to those traumas. In Buddhism, they talk about the backpack, and you hold up that everything that happens, you put into your backpack. Well, your backpack gets heavier and heavier and heavier. And there is a thing in Oriental diagnosis where people who have very hunched shoulders or leaning forwards, all those traumas are still in their body. All the things they've been to, and that's why they're leaning forwards or hunching down, or people whose heads they all the time looking downwards. It's because all those people that have been telling them off, and they still have them living in their head rent free. Their parents and the carers or partners who have berated them, they're still living there, and it's like they don't have to be there. You may not be able to control that, but you can control this. So your inner world, you are the god or goddess. You are the creator. You can remove them. You can love them. Say thank you very much for the lessons because they are actually a Sifu. However horrible you thought they were a teacher. They were there to teach you. and they have taught you, and now you can ask them to move and release them and let them go. And because when you want to, if your house is full up with stuff, how can you have new stuff when it's already full? You've got to clear old stuff out to make space for the new. You've got to do the same in your own body, your own head. So it's about acknowledging the past, acknowledging how strong you are because you've been through that and you're still holding on to that, but then allowing yourself to forgive yourself for doing that and give yourself the permission, because you are the one who has the permission, free will. You can now let that stuff go. You can now move on. You can now allow yourself to move on to new opportunities. And for a lot of people, that's the most scariest thing, because all those things, I'm used to this. I'm used to all this uncomfortable stuff. Yeah, it hurts, but I know it. But stuff out there is new and it's scary, and it's like, but you can handle it. It's proven by the stuff you've done. You can handle it. You can handle those new adventures. You can handle changing your reality. And you just got to believe in yourself and love yourself. Because that's the biggest thing. I know a lot of people who help everybody else and they give all their love to everybody else. But if you're not giving that to yourself, you're actually being unfair to everybody else, because you're not loving yours. You won't get the love you deserve if you're not loving yourself. You need to love yourself as much as you love everybody else, if not more than everybody else. And that's the biggest thing.
Yeah, I really appreciate your explanation. And it's so powerful just to realize that, like, even if you've carried it for so long, you can make a choice right now to proceed in the rest of your life without having that, and to really nurture yourself. And it's like you're really just, you deny the world of your gifts when you're weighed down by all those things and what you could be sharing and serving people at a higher level than you are now. And so powerful. And yeah.
I just want to say, and that's 100%. But
Yeah.
and there will be people that, if I would let everything go, let one thing go. Just
Yeah.
start with one thing.
Mhm.
There's a beautiful saying I love, which is there was a man. For me, he was a man. There was a man walking on the beach, and he goes onto this beach, and there's thousands of starfish, and there's this little girl picking up the starfish, saying something, and putting it back into water. And the man goes up to the little girl, says, "What are you doing?" And she says, "I'm saving starfish." And the man says, "But there's thousands of starfish all over the beach. You can't save all of them." And little girl goes, "But I can save this one, and I can
Oh,
save this one, and I
I
can."
love
And so start with one starfish. Start
Mhm.
with one. Just start small. Don't And this is the philosophy of qigong: is that we talk about doing 15 minutes day of practice. I haven't got time. I can find 15 minutes. There's
Mhm.
15 minutes where you're scratching your nose or picking your ear or
Right.
waiting for the kettle. I can find 15 minutes in your day. But start small, and a little bit every single day goes a long way and builds up.
Absolutely. Yeah. Even like when you try to overhaul your whole life, it's going to backfire a lot of times because it's too much too soon. But it's like your future self a year from now, think about how grateful that version of you is going to be when you say, "Oh, I started this and I just took the next tiniest step," and what your life could look like a year from now. And it's so profound. Last thing I want to just end with is that, do you mind sharing, before you started these practices, before you started doing this, what was your transformation? What was it before this in your life? And then where are you now as far as, I mean, I know you've shared some of where you are, but can you just share that transformation of like, what was it like, and why is it worth someone to start to initiate some of these practices in their life?
Well, I mean, for me, it started, when literally when I was like 11 years old, when I was a kid. But I used to have ulcers as a kid. I wouldn't know until I was 30, but I was dyslexic, dyspraxic, and the Western viewpoint, these are disadvantages. These are illnesses, and I was very much leading, down the road in that fact, like at the age of 12, I tried to commit suicide, 11 and 12. Hated the world, hated this place. I just wanted things to be nice. I wanted people to laugh and be friendly. And it's like, but but the world seemed so horrible, and everything seemed to be against that. And it was just learning to start with me and learning to, like that. There's so much to learn, and everything's interconnected. And the more you add, the more you grow, and the more you expand. And like for me, like I was beaten up at school a lot and picked on. And the first thing I learned was I didn't want to fight. I didn't want to fight the outside world. So I used humor. Firstly, I learned how to take a punch and how to be struck. So it didn't hurt anymore. And it's like learning how to make things not hurt is like this powerful thing. Hold up. I don't have to, I don't have to be in fear. I don't have to be afraid. And then learning to use humor as a weapon rather than, physical force. I learned how the bigger picture, and I learned actually everybody's caught in their own dramas. And I started seeing all these different plays and started to expand and started to grow. So, I mean, I know that my through ice hockey, I actually broke. You've got around about 106 little bones in your feet, and I broke 105 in my right foot, and I broke 104 in my left. And when I was by 18, my doctors were saying the time you get to 30, you're going to be in a wheelchair. You'll struggle to walk, because I also had flat feet and my feet were expanding outwards, and they was throwing all this doom all over me. Well, I'm 55 now. I'm still walking. I don't skate as much as I'd like to, but I'm fair. I think I'm fitter than the average 55-year-old, and it's changed my life. It's changed my world. It's helped me see things in different ways, and it's realizing that that you can. There is no limit. There is no limit to who you are and who you can be. The only limits are the ones you accept. So if you don't want a limit, don't accept it. Again, start small and build up. I'm not telling you to go out and jump off a building and fly. It could be possible, but you have to build up to that. It's start small and build up. Start off with one starfish.
I love it. So I'm so grateful for everything, Sharon. There's so many powerful things in here. I think it's like an episode you could play back and pull and extract more and more from, and just really learn to see life, see yourself differently, and really recognize the power that you have within you. And for someone who wanted to connect with you, where can they find you?
So you can find me under Sifu Boggie. You can find me on YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, Linktree. My real name is Paul Brighton, so Paul Sifu Boggie Brighton. And I also have my own school, so my online school, like Mystery School, where we teach everything we talked about, the Daoist philosophy, as well as the different exercises, the Qigongs and whatnot. And that's under shindao.uscreen.io. I think.
Very good. I'll put everything in the show notes too. For anyone who's listening, definitely check out the show notes, connect to Sifu. And again, I'm so honored to have you on today and just to share so much value. I'm so grateful for everything that you shared. And I know it's going to make a difference in anyone who listens to this. So thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, absolutely. And then for anyone who's listening, if you found value in this, definitely share this episode with someone who you also think might benefit from it. Thanks again for joining us.
Thank you for spending this time with me today. If something in this episode stirred your truth, reminded you of your worth, or helped you see your patterns with more compassion, you're already rewiring your life. Remember, you don't have to earn your place, overgive to be valued, or shrink to keep the peace. You get to honor your voice, you get to protect your energy, you get to live aligned with who you really are. If you're ready to go deeper, explore more tools, or join a community of women walking this same path, head over to drkellykessler.com. Everything you need to continue this journey is waiting for you. Until next time, take a deep breath, trust yourself, and keep choosing the version of you who feels like home.